Welcome to the Strong as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Santucci, and join us for some strong conversations.
All right, this is a big year for everyone. I mean, we were just outside watching a solar eclipse. It's an election year, so you know what that means. There's going to be a lot of fake news, real news, and nobody know what's really going on. But a guy who was on the inside for 4 years, not only on the Yukon football team, but also in the White House, my man, Johnny Mac. Guys, you might know him from The Right Stuff. And if you don't know what The Right Stuff is, well, we're going to tell you all about it right now. John.
Great to be here. Thank you for the intro.
Yeah.
When people say you played at Yukon, I just say, yeah, I let them imply it was basketball. I don't usually say the football thing. I'm like, eh.
Yeah, but you guys were good back in the
Back then we were pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least, Lutris's year, our friend,
Yeah.
we were pretty good in like the 2010 era.
Yeah.
It's fallen off though.
And now you guys are the same age, right?
He's 2 years older.
2 years older. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you were the backup quarterback, though.
I was the backup quarterback. They actually let me start 1 year, which got interesting.
Okay.
We didn't do too well.
But you got to be. This is what I love when I go to sporting events and you have some fat slob in the audience who's like, the quarterback sucks.
Right.
Tom Brady's a pussy. I'm like, whoa. He's better than you at everything.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
know, throwing a football, dancing, picking up women. He's better than you at everything. How the hell are you saying he sucks? So you had to be pretty decent enough to make a college. That's a D1.
I started as a walk-on. Yeah, it's D1. I started as a walk-on. I kind of worked my way up.
Yeah.
I was most known for making a viral trick shot video.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that was kind of my claim to fame more than the on-the-field performance.
So then what happened? You graduated from college.
Went home to Southern California. Just got a job, ordinary deal, and my sister actually told me when I was thinking about switching it up. She's like, "Oh, you should move to New York," and I moved to New York on a whim. And then did some odd jobs here, and then got a job at Fox, got into politics, yeah.
What was the worst job that you had here? Because you come to New York, right? And just to make ends meet, it is a grinder of a city. So everybody takes on jobs where you're like, like I had some bartending jobs. I had a fucking security job.
Yeah.
I hated all of them.
I did a job where we were building sets for magazine shoots. It was actually really cool. I never knew this existed. They go set up a room. You actually have to build the cabinet and paint the walls and make the room like whatever the director of the commercial thinks it should look like.
Yeah.
So I was part of a set thing, and there was one day where we were loading all of these props and all of this shit out in the freezing cold in January, and I was just like, man, I can't do this anymore. Forget day labor. I couldn't even be a set designer. I was like, this is rough.
So then how'd you get the job at Fox?
Yeah. So I met a guy at church who worked at Fox. I was like, whoa, I'm conservative. This will be a perfect fit. So I just got an entry-level job there. It was with foxnews.com. It wasn't a great fit. If I was on the TV side, it probably would have been, but just wasn't the right element.
What did they actually have you doing?
I wasn't really doing much. I was a PA, and just, they send you things, you kind of edit them, you send them around, you clean up the articles on foxnews.com.
Yeah. But that gave you some skills as to what you're doing right now. Right?
Yeah.
Didn't that give you a little
maybe a little. I think maybe a little. I think more the learning how to go viral in college kind of led to where I am now.
Okay.
Than that. And then obviously my experience in politics led to the kind of content I make.
Yeah. So the viral video, I mean, back then, 2010, it was very hard to go viral.
Right.
There were very few videos, and the only thing was YouTube.
Right. YouTube was very new at the time. I remember when we launched our video, the most watched video on YouTube was 100 million views or something.
Yeah.
Now there's ones with 5 billion.
Yeah.
So when we launched ours, and in a few days it had 7 million views, it was like, whoa.
Yeah. What do you attribute to that? Do you have a formula or something?
At the time, I think YouTube actually was pushing it.
Yeah.
Because they were still young and they wanted the virality of it.
Yeah.
We also sent it around to everyone. We sent it to Barstool. We sent it to the local paper.
Yeah.
So we and then we used Facebook, which was still, I guess it was kind of new. We used Facebook to send it to all our friends, and they shared it, and it kind of just went viral from there.
That's insane.
Yeah.
So now you worked at Fox, and then what? Take us through the.
Yeah, I'm working at Fox for a few months. It's not a great fit. One day in June of 2015, Donald Trump gives his very famous announcement in New York.
Up on the staircase. Right?
Yeah, and I was like, oh man, I got to work for this guy.
So you had no prior, like, what was your thoughts of Donald Trump at that time?
I honestly try to remember what I thought of Donald Trump before I worked for him, and I can't remember. I mean, I knew he was a celebrity.
Yeah.
I didn't have a strong opinion on him, but his speech was so like hardline and so refreshing.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy could win, you know? I was like, I'm jumping on this train.
So you believed he could have won back?
Oh yeah.
I see.
Oh yeah.
I thought. I mean, listen. I've been seen so much of this shit in the past where it's like Hulk Hogan's running, Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to run. You're like, oh man, that'd be so cool if somebody you actually knew of really
Right.
won. And when he did that, I'm like, he's not really going to run. Like, no, I didn't even take it serious. But at the time, I mean, listen, he's in a ton of rap. Like, what's he in 10 or 11 rap songs they mention him in? And I remember growing up, being here in New York, like New Jersey, New York, his name's on everything. He was just looked at as like a figure of success.
Right.
Like, oh, if you could do what Donald Trump did, you made it.
He was the American dream.
Yeah,
you know?
he was really like an American dream, and people looked at him like that. And then it's like 2015, it's like, holy shit, he just turns a corner. And
Right.
he's the biggest piece of
I
shit.
think the one thing that was a differentiator was he had the celebrity thing, like you're saying, the Hulk Hogan or The Rock or whatever. But the things he was talking about actually were things a lot of politicians had forgotten that really resonated with like a right-wing base of like losing our manufacturing and letting like migrants just flow in and like all these wars all over the place and like stuff that like ordinary people are like, this is like crazy. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
And he was speaking to that. So he had the celebrity, but he also had like the policy, I thought.
So because you were behind the curtain for so long, like, was that the plan, or did he say, "Oh, I'm just going to take this angle because no one else is talking about it"? Like, did he really believe, like, "Hey, I'm going to run"? Because there is some belief that he really was running just to run, and when he won, he was like, "Oh shit, now I got to really do this."
Right. I don't know if I buy into that. I think he went in, and maybe he was the only one, him and me, that thought he could actually win.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think he did it as like, oh, I'm seeing an angle. I think he instinctively believes these things because he's a businessman. He's an outsider. He's been part of Hollywood. He's been part of so many different industries, but he's also in his 70s, kind of has an old school view of America.
Yeah.
And he's been watching and talking about all of this stuff since the 80s.
Yeah.
And people have been like, wait, is this guy going to like run for president? And he got to the point where finally he's like, I'm just going to do it. You know, and I think if he went in, he would only go in if he thought he could win.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I buy into the...
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty impressive. I remember always seeing him on the news as a kid, and it was, you know, everybody idolized him. You know, I remember after 9/11, they interviewed him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to put in money. I'm going to help build this up. I'm putting all my guys into this," and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's amazing, Donald Trump," and he's kind of continued that same thing, only now he's got this dark cloud above him,
Right?
You know, and he's got this evil persona.
He's still the most iconic man in the world. Depending on, doesn't matter what side you're on.
Yeah,
you know,
doesn't matter. Yeah.
There's no one more famous. There's no one like him right now in the world.
Somebody was saying I was listening to this podcast. I was listening to Zack Snyder was on Joe Rogan, and he goes, you could go to any country in the world and show anybody the Superman symbol, and everybody knows exactly what it is. It's like you say Trump, everybody.
Yeah, there's not a single person. You can go to wherever, middle of the Congo. Someone will know what.
And people have an opinion either way. So he's made himself pretty iconic.
Yeah.
So because you spend so much time with him, give us a little reality or your perspective as to what he's like, just shooting the shit, sitting around. Like,
well, because he's been around so long and he's been in the celebrity world, he has so many great stories.
Yeah.
And because he's been in the business world, he has so many great like lessons. So watching him think through things and like attribute it or tell a story about like, well, you don't want to do that because I know a guy who back in the day sold his company. He lost all his momentum. He lost it all. He tried to get back in the game, but it was too late. Never lose your momentum. And it's like, whoa, like this is actually a good lesson.
Yeah.
You know, or when he's talking about like being with Frank Sinatra and, you know, you say, sir, you know, what would you like to eat? We're almost to the rally site. And he goes, you never eat before you perform. Sinatra told me that. You know, it's just like,
yeah, which is insane.
You know, it's like, whoa, that's cool. And that's actually good advice.
I remember, so my dad had his book, like one of the first books that came out or in the early 90s.
Art of the Deal or one of those.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
And in it, he had said, and my dad used to tell me this all the time. He's like, you know, Donald Trump said that you should never trust the guy who's never lost because he doesn't know what it feels like and he can never bounce back. So you should always take, he goes, if I had to choose between a guy who's always won and a guy who's lost a couple times and won, he goes, I'd go with the guy who's lost because at least he knows how to bounce back. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. And for most people, that's our reality. Not everybody wins and wins.
No.
So I was like, shit, that was such a great piece of advice. I never like telling people that, oh, I got that from Donald Trump, because people are like, oh, you must be a flat earther or something.
Yeah.
So, but you got to see him in a different light. And that's so cool because he has lived all these different lives.
Yeah.
Like, what's the best piece of advice that you've gotten from him? Just like you and him sitting around, maybe having coffee or something.
I think it is the one where he talks about a guy he knew, had it all, huge company, sold it, went off, boating, living the life, decided, okay, I want to get it back, tried to buy the company back. He said, it all went to shit. I went to a party. The old man was sitting in the corner of the room, broke, right? And he looks at him and he said, I lost my momentum. Yeah. And Donald Trump said, I'm never going to lose my momentum. Yeah. You know, and that's why he's gone from industry to industry, whether it's television or real estate or politics, and he just keeps going.
Yeah.
And he doesn't lose his momentum. So that one actually stuck with me the most.
Well, it's impressive because I was with a couple guys yesterday. I flew down to Florida and I was working with these guys who all were either former finance guys or former Navy SEALs. And every one of them is 55 plus. All of them in great shape, all of them on top of their shit, like still, you know, working and doing the things they have to do. And I think there's this mentality in America that's like, all right, I need to retire by 50 or 55 or 60 years old and I'm done. But it's like these guys keep going and they have more money than anything else. And one of the coolest things that this guy told me, and I've been telling everybody this since he's told me this, is he goes, for wealthier people, you'll run out of your health before you run out of your wealth. He goes, so more people need to start dialing this in. And I think about that because there are so many people who are like shut down. They stop working. They don't want to, they don't need to work out anymore. Like the other day I was doing a jiu-jitsu tournament. I'm 40 years old. People are like, how could you be doing this? It's like, why not? You know, you shut off. And it's admirable because you see guys like Donald Trump who are like, he's on, I mean, I don't think he goes to the gym much, but he's on the golf course. He's hanging out.
Got a lot of energy still.
Yeah, which is impressive.
Still working, still thinking. Yeah. I think it's important to not stop. I think a lot of people, when they do, they die, honestly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny because I used to work at a shipping yard in New Jersey. And it's, I don't know if it's, you know, by, you know, accident or whatever you want to call it. A lot of the guys who would retire, a lot of guys would stay there and die on the job, but they die at like 70, 75 years old. A lot of the guys who were like, I'm out at 60 years old, 6 months to a year later, they were all dead. Because they didn't really have a purpose. So I think when you lose that purpose, like their purpose in life after they raised their kids and shit was to go to work every day, get something done. When you don't have that, what do you have? You know, and I think that's what keeps a lot of these people young. I mean, look at a lot of these politicians. They don't die. Two, they don't give up those positions.
Oh, they don't give them up.
It's insane.
They don't give them up. Yeah. I mean, some of them are a little too old. But
yeah, and that, so like, I mean, you're on the inside, right? Like, or at least you got to see it. Why aren't there any policies around that? Why isn't there anybody saying like, hey, like, get the fuck out?
Yeah, I mean,
you got enough money.
So there's an age limit, right? You have to be 35 to be president. And some people say, well, there should be a restriction on how old you could be. I don't know if I totally buy into that because there are exceptions, and it doesn't necessarily matter with age because you look at Donald Trump and Joe Biden, who are both older.
Yeah.
You're looking at two very different states of mind.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, one can totally do the job. One, everyone's wondering who's actually doing the job.
Yeah.
And I think in a free country, you know, there should probably be less restrictions and people should just vote. And, you know, I don't know if there should be a policy around like an age limit. I think people should just find a way to hold these people more accountable. I definitely think younger people need to be involved in politics. You know, you see these tech hearings on the Hill and the guys are talking about like the Wi-Fi. They don't even know what they're talking about. You know, it's like,
it's impressive.
It's
an old man's game, but like,
yeah.
You see how, I mean, you've been there. You've seen how volatile it is. I think you have to be a complete narcissist, psychopath to want to be involved in politics.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are. Yeah. A lot of them. Not all, but a lot.
Because if we were all sitting around and somebody's like, well, somebody needs to be in charge, and you're like, all right, it should be me.
Right.
You know, I think there's a little bit of narcissism.
Right.
So, you know, you had to be around a lot of these talking heads, the Nancy Pelosi's and shit. I mean, are they? Because some of them look like fucking zombies.
Some of them are. Nancy had it together,
Yeah.
She's old, but she ran a tight ship. I mean, she held her caucus in line. She was tough. Even Donald Trump will admit, like, she's tough,
She's been there forever. She's a career politician.
I could not probably disagree with her more in terms of our view of the world and the country, but for her constituents, I think she delivered.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that I'm on the other side. I'm like, oh, I wish she wasn't that effective.
Yeah, but when did you start to see that turn? Because I feel like, I'd say around, 2010 maybe, you started to see a lot of this, like, radical, not only left, but right, kind of verbiage. Like, where'd a lot of that come from? Because I don't remember politicians being being a kid.
Right.
The
90s were the golden era.
Yes.
It was kind of like
you didn't even give a shit. Like, I remember hearing as a kid, I mean, I was 10, 11 years old, I think, when all the Clinton stuff came out, right? Like, that he was getting. And I remember being in high school and being like, who gives a shit that he got a blowjob?
Right.
It's like, I'm hoping, like, I remember like everybody talking about Kennedy banging Marilyn Monroe and all this shit. I'm like, who gives a shit? I guess they were all doing it, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, why was it such a big deal? But I think around 2010, you started to see it be so polarizing on either side.
I think it's because the left has dominated for so long.
Yeah.
So you have the combination of that with now the backlash.
Yeah.
And it's because they took over academia, they took over the media.
Yeah.
All of it is left wing. So that could last for a while and that's fun. But when they keep pushing and pushing and trying to break down all of these things that made the country great, obviously people are going to start fighting it, and that's the point we're at now.
So, but what do you think the end game is, right? Like, because they're pushing on either end.
Yeah,
so far.
I think there'll be
the end game?
I think there'll be a shift to the right, actually.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a cultural shift to the right. The country is naturally conservative. That's why my social media stuff does well. It appeals to a lot of people that aren't political, and they just think things are getting way too crazy.
Yeah.
So I think at some point, I don't think it's necessarily based on the election. I think just over time in the next 10 years, you see this, like Gen Z, the younger generation, is more conservative, Gen Z men are more conservative. And that's because they're growing up in an America that tells them they have white privilege or they have to address someone with pronouns or men can get pregnant. And some kid in high school's like, what? Like, what? So this is pushing people to the right. But I think there'll be a...
But that's my thing. It's like you're pushing this belief system that there's no real truth to, right? Like, I don't think, I don't know, maybe because I live in New York and I'm just in a very liberal city, I don't think you ever see anybody, mistreating people. I mean, does it go on?
No,
nobody gives a shit, but it doesn't have to be like pushed on everybody.
Yeah.
It's like if you were walking around being like, oh, you should bang girls or have your ass cheeks out or some shit. And you're like, for what though?
Yeah, I think the normie Democrat has just given the radical left-wing Democrat way too much. I think it is probably a little more fringe, kind of that stuff where...
And a lot of there's a lot that goes on that I'm like, this shit has been around since the 70s, 60s, 70s, right? It's like the hippies and the free love
right,
60s and 70s. And everybody's like, oh, this is a new idea. I'm like, not really. It's just
the only thing that's different is now those people are in almost every institution where it was like a radical fringe or like young people or whatever.
Yeah.
The inmates are now running the asylum. That's why you have like companies that do all this like crazy stuff. And they're like, how could Nike put that out? It's like, well, Nike's run by like left-wing millennials. Like, what do you mean? That's who runs their marketing department and they buy into this. So that's how you get that.
Yeah. And you see it affect almost every industry.
Yeah.
But then, on the right, you have, I mean, my cousin is actually one of these people who believed in like Pizzagate.
Right.
And the world's flat. And I'm like, all right, now you're just making the whole thing just a stupid argument.
Yeah, they go a little too far. Yeah.
So what do you attribute that? Like, because
I think because conspiracies have been coming true, they want to believe every conspiracy now.
Yeah.
And there are some that are true,
Yeah.
And I was never conspiratorial before working in government. Working in government actually made me like, I think there are some things to this.
So I have two for you that I'm fascinated with. The first one being like the whole Kennedy assassination. And I've watched the movie. I've watched
What do you
multiple
think about it? Yeah, 'cause
documentaries.
there's a lot of. It's like, was it the mob? Was it multiple shooters?
Yeah.
Like,
Was it CIA?
right.
It just doesn't make any sense. It's like, you know, they say he got shot in the head from behind, but if I've seen the videotape multiple times, and his head gets blown back. So I don't know what type of gun that is. Right? The back of his head came off.
Yeah.
So it's like, how the fuck any type of shot or explosion or anything that blows off the back end, right? It's not the front end. So I don't know. I
really don't know either. I mean, RFK is talking about this during his, he's running for president, and that's his uncle.
What do you think the chances of him winning are?
Him winning?
Or him getting any type of like traction behind him? Because he's
he's going to get traction.
Yeah?
Yeah. Is it enough to make it?
Do you think it's going to pull away from Trump, or do you think it's going to pull away from Biden?
So every poll says it pulls from Biden. However, I think it pulls from Trump just because he's so anti-COVID and all of those things and vaccines. And those are pretty right-wing people usually.
And he's getting some pretty big names behind him.
Yeah.
Like I know, like Joe Rogan loves him.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, like the Rogan sphere. Twitter sphere.
All those Austin guys. Yeah. Like he's in fucking Austin campaigning a lot.
How is that enough to sway an election? I don't know.
Well, what was it? It was who was it in the 90s?
Ross Perot.
Ross Perot.
Yeah, he gave it to Clinton basically. Yeah. Yeah, if he wouldn't have run, HW would have been reelected. We had President Clinton because of Ross Perot. Yeah. Same thing could happen now where he pulls enough that
that's what I was thinking.
It either keeps Biden in or gets Trump in. Or
I think that's the only way Biden wins this year is if
he pulls from
if RFK could pull enough votes.
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, when you look at the last election, you're talking about 10,000 votes in 4 different states. I mean, it's very small.
And it's insane that it comes down to that. We have 300 million people, and we're that split.
I know.
Off of 10,000 votes, you're like, that's not really that many people.
No, it's nothing.
Yeah,
it's actually crazy. Yeah.
So this year is obviously going to have as the year flows on, we got more and more shit coming out.
Yeah, it's still early in the year. Yeah.
And what's your thoughts? Because this is what kills me is so many people are like, if Trump gets in, I was watching, what's his name? De Niro was on Bill Maher. Now I'm a Bill Maher guy.
Oh yeah, me too.
I think he's great.
Oh yeah, I like.
I think he's just enough left for me, and he's just enough right. He sits right in the middle. He's funny. He's been doing this forever.
I mean, I don't agree with a lot, but I think he's good. Yeah.
But this is what's crazy is that people are like, oh, how could you like him? Because I'm like, I could like anybody on the right. I could like anybody on the left. I don't have to agree with everything they say.
I like the right stuff guy. They're gonna be like, what? No, not that guy.
And but you could agree with somebody and you could disagree with somebody and still like them.
Yeah.
Which is, I think,
I think his show is really good.
Yeah. So I think his show's great. He had Robert De Niro on, and Robert De Niro was like, oh, if Trump gets in, it's the end of the world. I'm like, wait, he was already president for 4 years.
So was it the end of the world? I mean,
was it
COVID? That was horrible, but the other 3 years.
But everybody acts like he planted COVID or something. But I don't remember it being that bad from and they're like, that's because you were a white male, and I'm like, what? What the fuck? I lived in the same city and nothing was different.
That's crazy.
2016 to 2020, I don't know. Like I remember at Solace, you were there when they did the women's march, and all the girls in my gym who made more than all the guys, I paid them all more than the guys because they were actually better at the job. They're like, we're going to go march in this. This is wrong. I go, you guys, there's more of you than guys here. You guys all have it pretty good.
You're overrepresented.
Yeah. What the fuck? You're not experiencing this.
Right.
I don't know what the fuck you're going to march for, but sure, go ahead.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a lot of this mentality that if he gets in again, it's the end of the world. And all that starts to stir up and people go crazy. And I think there's a lot of fucking stupid people out there. The other day, thousands of people in the street walking down Fifth Avenue protesting the
Middle East stuff.
Mm-hmm. This war has been going on forever.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years. At least the last 60, it's been pretty fucking volatile.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do you all care now? Right? Because it's almost like a social movement. It's like I could take a picture.
Right.
I was there.
A lot of things people, use as that.
I just feel like 90% of people who are walking are just, they just
want it for their Instagram.
Yeah.
Like the George Floyd stuff.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who just don't even know why the fuck they're doing it. It just seems like the cool, trendy thing to do. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, people like to be a part of something. They want to feel like they're fighting or they're struggling. Yeah. I think that's like what we were talking about earlier, like having a purpose. So when life comes easy to you, relatively easy, you know.
Yeah. Well,
you're
when
looking
you don't
for
have real shit to worry
yeah,
about.
you're looking for something to like cling to, and you're like, I'm oppressed, or they're oppressed, or somebody's, you know, and you just like you just feed off it.
It was so funny to me because I remember like when you have real shit to deal with, like when you have to worry about putting food on the table, when you have to worry about like making rent, those things are so American, right? And are so salt of the earth type of people. During every fucking protest that I've seen, every march down the street, there's always guys jumping out of an Amazon truck, delivering packages, carrying shit, going to work. Like the average blue collar American is just like, leave me the fuck alone. I just want to do my job. Like, let me, and I don't have time.
Yeah, they don't have the luxury of that.
Yeah, to protest or do all this shit. And I feel like I see a lot of it are wealthier people who have this luxury of like, I'm not doing anything on a Tuesday afternoon. I'll go fucking protest. It's like, you don't have a fucking job?
Yeah.
Like, that's what's
There's
crazy.
a lot of rich kids out there doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think because their families have accumulated so much wealth, it just gets passed down, right? Like, I mean, we're experiencing this generation, this younger generation that is just piggybacking off what their grandparents and their parents have done, and just like, here, go live in New York.
Right. Idle hands do the devil's work. You know what I mean? And I think any guy has kids and is working 2 jobs, and you know, he's not thinking about these things. He doesn't care. He's like just grinding, he's hustling, and like that's part of the beauty of life is like the struggle. You know, that's what Richard Nixon said. If you don't know the struggle, you don't know life, you know? So yeah, I mean, I hope that trend is like nearing the end. You know, it really peaked with like the women's stuff, the George Floyd stuff. You know, now there's a little resurgence with the Gaza stuff, but I'm hoping we're like, you know, we need to just get people more purpose-driven lives in the country, you know, whether that's creating families or, you know, more entrepreneurial pursuits or whatever. Like, use this energy for something else.
Exactly. I think there's more people who should be using the time that they have to do more good and less just like, oh, I'm just going to follow the
Yeah, create, build, don't tear down.
Exactly.
You know?
100%. So, speaking of building, right, you started this, I mean, was this all your idea, the right stuff?
Actually, it was a friend of mine. It was her idea. She's like, you know, all my girlfriends just want to date Republicans. You should make a Republican dating app.
And you were like, oh, sure, no problem.
I was like, wait, that's actually, you know, I thought about it, and then I talked to my co-founders, and we were like, wait, that's not bad. You know, there's a dating app for everything. Why isn't there one for conservatives?
But now, I always think of like the logistics of it, right? As a business person, anytime I'm putting anything together, I'm like, fuck, well, now I need to find somebody who can actually execute on this.
Right.
How do you find the right team to build the hardware, the software rather?
The first part is finding somebody to invest, because this costs money.
Yeah.
You know, and actually I set up a meeting with a guy.
But you don't know how much money, right? Because
you can kind of ballpark it a little bit. I had made an app before.
Okay.
So I kind of knew, and then like you throw in some marketing, you know, you just kind of ballpark it a little bit.
Yeah.
So I was meeting with an investor, and I said, you know, let me pitch you all of my ideas, because I had a bunch of ideas, like everyone. You know, you write down your ideas. You're in the shower, like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And it was just a few days before the meeting where this girl brought this up, and I thought, oh, I'm going to add that. So I had 4 things I was pitching. This was the 5th, and it was the last one.
So
that's the one.
You had multiple ideas.
I was like, let me just tell you my ideas. You tell me what you think.
Yeah.
And the last one was the right stuff, the dating app for conservatives. And his eyes kind of like lit up, and he was like, you do that one, I'll invest. I was like, great, we're doing that one. You know, like
Peter Thiel.
Yeah.
No shit. So you have a meeting with him. How'd that happen?
I knew him through the political world. You know, he backed Trump. He was kind of always around. He had some questions. He had some friends of his running for different races, and we kind of, you know, became friends.
Okay.
And when I was helping him with that stuff, I just said, you know, I have all these ideas, and you're, you know, Peter Thiel. I was like, let me tell you, let me tell you my ideas.
Yeah.
He's like, great, come have breakfast with me. So
wait, what are some of the ones what are the other ideas?
One was a Forbes 400 list of ranking congressmen based on performance on like a right-wing spectrum. So like if you donate to someone, you know how they do, you know, and like, because I always think everyone calls me like, is this guy good? Is that guy good? Even the president would call me, you know, like, do we like that guy in Nebraska? like they don't know because you forget, or like
Yeah.
there's so many to keep track of. And I was like, why don't I just put this online and tell you like everything they've done? You gave this guy $100 last year. Well, here's what he delivered for you, and here's what he didn't.
No
you
shit.
know, and I thought it was kind of a cool. Looking back, the dating app is way cooler.
Yeah.
Another one was an idea to buy a conservative media outlet and kind of like revamp it. I had this idea behind that. Another one was a Uber kind of service, but you can drive the car yourself. Literally the same experience, but I could be like, no, I want to drive, and then I can drive. Because if you're like me and you land at LAX, like I just want to get home. Like I don't want some like guy like that doesn't know, or some old lady. Like, just sit in the back. I don't care. Go on Instagram. Let me drive, and then we'll get out and you can go home.
That's a wild.
You know, and
hey, can I drive your car? Sit in the back seat.
yeah, literally, I want to drive. I'll get there faster. Like, I don't like your driving. I'm getting car sick.
I agree. Fuck, that's actually.
You know, I'm in a lot where I'm like, dude, just let me drive. It's not that I need a driver. I just need the car. You know, and then just get out.
Yeah. Yesterday, I'm going to the airport, and I get this old little man who's driving me to the airport. And I go, hey, bud, I'm going to be late.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
We don't get to JFK.
Perfect scenario.
And he's like, okay. And he's driving. I'm like, are you fucking purposely going slow, dude?
He went slow after
I
that.
was like, holy shit. I was dying in the
Am I being
backseat.
punked?
Yeah. I thought he was fucking with me. That's how slow he was driving.
God.
That's
See?
actually a good one.
Yeah, I know. I thought it was so good. We're like,
great.
yeah, you should be able to drive it yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that, you know.
And then the last one's the right stuff.
Yeah, the last one was the right stuff. Yeah, there was one more, but yeah, I forget what. Yeah.
So he liked the idea.
Yeah, he was like, "Wow, that's a great idea." Yeah.
Yeah. So then, I mean, your response. So you start putting the pieces together, and
I have a couple co-founders.
Yeah.
You know, and one, Isaac, I had worked on a previous app with. He's been my friend my whole life. One I worked with in the White House, Dan. And another guy, James, also. And we were kind of thinking through like our own experiences with apps, like what we'd want it to do, how it would look, how it would feel. We hired a creative team.
Yeah.
We outsourced originally to India. That went to hell. We reshaped it. We hired this great guy, Songbay, a Berkeley kid. So he's our back-end developer, and then we outsource our front-end stuff to Ukrainians. We had a U.S. team do the kind of creative stuff and like put it out there.
As a business person, I've learned that having too many cooks in the kitchen, too many business partners, fucks everything up.
Yeah.
Why bring on the partners? Like, what do they help you actually do?
Well, for sure, one helps run the whole project. I don't know anything about code. I don't know how to talk to these people. We need somebody doing that.
Yeah.
Dan has been my guy. He's a lawyer. He can do the contracts. He's kind of like, you know, he has his role. And then James helps me with everything. He was my deputy in the White House.
Yeah.
Whether it's coming up with lines for Instagram.
Yeah.
Or, you know, any other thing. So it's a team effort.
So now when did you start seeing some traction with this? Because your content on social media is amazing. But like, does that convert over to actual users?
Probably not as much as people would think.
Yeah. Because most people just like watch it.
Yeah, they just watch it. It's like old boomers and they're just sharing it around, you know? And it's like, okay, but get your kids on the app, you know?
Yeah, but I think you should have to start putting some little fucking website or something underneath, or like have the click on it.
You're right.
Because you're putting out such great stuff and you're getting viral. Like, I was looking at your shit the other day. It's like the top 5 videos or top 10 videos have millions of views.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's a way to do it. I also think there's a way to incorporate other influencers now that we have this big brand and have them kind of make the hard sell on the actual app. And I'll just keep like the funny theme of like the vibe going and like make this like a lifestyle thing. Like
I think you've softened the blow of some of these thoughts, right? And some of these beliefs, right? Because
I hope so.
The way you deliver it, it's like, hey, he's actually spot on with some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what side you're on. I think people agree.
Yeah.
That,
And there's some that we do that attack both, you know, just politicians or, you know, most of it is very right wing, obviously. But sometimes those do better that are just kind of mainstream, you know?
So, I mean, you spent 4 years in the White House.
I spent 2.5 years.
2.5 years. Yeah. So, you know, and your role was basically you were like his assistant.
Yeah.
You're with him a lot. Anytime I've met a politician, right, whether it was a mayor, or, you know, governor, they're so good at making you feel like you're the only person in the room. Who have you met, especially in like the White House or, you know, Congress and stuff, who's just such a fucking charmer that you're like, this guy's or this girl's fucking good?
Yeah. You know, actually, one that stood out, I don't even remember his name, was the governor of New Jersey. You know,
Yeah.
that guy.
What's his name? Murphy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was.
Dude, it's so funny that you say that because for me, I said the same thing. I'm
like, this guy is too much. You know,
Yeah.
like, he was so cool. And I disagree with him on almost everything. I'm like, what's going on here? You know?
It's so funny you said that because I had met him 2 or 3 times, and he's really good friends with a client of mine. And every time I met him, I'm like, this motherfucker is good. He's a charmer.
Yes, he is.
I'm like, and there's.
I was shocked by that guy because no one really knows, you know, he's the governor.
But he was a finance guy too. He's a Wall Street guy.
Right.
So he's a fucking.
He's been wheeling and dealing.
For 30 fucking years.
That guy's smooth.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so impressive that you said that. Yeah. Murphy's a fucking G.
Yeah.
When it comes to that. And I know there's a ton of, but I also like what he's doing right now with the congestion tax thing. Like he's fighting this hard. I was listening to.
I don't know anything about it.
Talk right. So they have this new tax here in the city that as soon as you come into the city, anything below 59th Street, coming off any of the bridges or the tunnels, you have to now pay an additional $15 tax to the city, right? There's all these cameras set up for a congestion tax. So now this is going to drive up the price of any type of goods that are coming through, you know, Midtown. It's going to jack up. You now have to pay the tunnel fee and the.
Is this already in place or something?
It started this
being
month.
imposed or something?
Yeah, and he's now trying to sue the city of New York on behalf of the city, the state of New Jersey, and trying to get it overturned.
Wow.
Which is impressive. And I'm like, fuck, good for him.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
That's cool.
So, you know, are you getting called back in? Are you getting called back
I don't know about that.
No?
I do some work, actually. There's this project in charge of, like, some of the transition work if he were to win, like the staffing stuff, because that's what I did the last year of the administration.
Yeah.
In addition to being his aide, I ran the personnel office, like the hiring and the firing. So I work on a project with the Heritage Foundation on that.
Okay.
And that's kind of thinking of, like, who are some good people that we can plug in, like, and like recruiting and creating a database where if you want to work in DC, it's the options available to you. So I'm doing that kind of work, like if he were to win.
And
but I don't think I'll work on
like,
the campaign itself.
Now you get paid by his campaign fund, right, to do this stuff, or you
this is through. I get paid from the Heritage Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, this is separate from the campaign.
Okay.
Yeah, this is transition work. So this is if he wins, then what?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like the campaign needs to be totally focused on winning, and then this group needs to be totally focused on, great, you won, and then like what do you do? Yeah.
So now, to run a campaign for the president, right, to raise all this money, I mean, do they even know where all? Because there's so much funding going into this, right? I mean, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
Hundreds of millions of
Hundreds
dollars.
of millions, yeah. Billions if you're a Democrat, probably, yeah.
Yeah. Do they even know where the fuck all this money's going?
Like what it's being spent on?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of grift in there. You know, there's a lot of grift.
It just seems like nowadays, because there's so much money in circulation, there's so much money getting thrown around. I tell people this all the time. When I was in my 20s, someone famous or somebody who had a lot of money had 50 million, 70 million. Now it's like there's billionaire people who have billions of dollars. That means you never have to fucking work again. It's so crazy.
Yeah, a lot of money's getting thrown around.
And there are so many hundreds of millionaires. I mean, where do you see this going? Like,
I don't know.
It's just insane.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there is something to the left's attack on this. I don't buy into their solution, but the divide is getting really big, you know, with the rich and poor in the country, and that's through a lot of different things, but that's not good.
That's my point, is that like there are people who have so much money, they'll never even spend it. You know, you won't even like put a dent in it, even if you're being a complete degenerate with it. You know, I think it's just it's making the country so much. I think the middle class is what keeps the country together.
Yeah, and it's smaller and smaller.
And it gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
You know, so it's scary. Like it's the future of humanity with AI and everything like that. It's just like taking more jobs. I was talking to somebody the other day who put a little bit of ease into me. Somebody who's worked in the tech world for quite some time and made a couple $1 billion off it.
That's it?
What?
I said, that's it?
Yeah. And he was saying, he's like, I think there's going to be some jobs birthed from a lot of this stuff. But a lot of the, you know, kind of low-level jobs that a lot of Americans rely on are going to be gone.
Yeah.
Because you could just have AI do it. Even high-level jobs like attorneys and stuff.
Right.
You know, like it's like if I could just go on AI and have them figure this out for me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I think one of the things that Trump did or is going to do, did a little and then will do again, is like bring back our industry, you know, because people also forget that it's not just technology. There are more cars on the road today than there have ever been. We just don't make them.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's like bringing back industry will actually like revitalize America because with the industry comes the town and the new restaurant and the, you know.
Yeah, but
so
now,
that brings you a middle class.
But how do you bring that back? Right? Because it's
usually through renegotiating trade agreements or putting up tariffs. So saying, you know, if Asia wants to send cars here, they pay a tax. So we make money on that, but it also incentivizes them to build their factory here.
Yeah.
You know, they can still have it owned by Toyota, but they build the Toyota plant in Florida or whatever, you know, because they don't want to pay the tax. So we opened up our whole market for free, basically. And now I think smart people are saying, maybe we should, you know, own our own market and produce our own things and, you know, become a little more self-reliant.
Yeah. Well, why? Because Americans don't want to work at all. It's hard to really kind of bring back a lot of those industries. I think there's a lot of people who are like, well, I could just go become a fucking TikTok star.
Yeah, I mean,
or an OnlyFans girl. Why am I going to go, you know?
I hope.
Put the bumper on a Chevy.
I think there's enough that want to work still.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Being a TikToker, let me tell you, don't rely on that as your income. Get a real job. TikTok on the side.
Does it help? I mean, are you like generating revenue from?
No, actually, I'm not. I just bring people to my app. That's pretty much it. Yeah, really? I haven't even figured out how to do like the creator fund or anything like that. I've never been paid. Yeah.
I was going to say, no one's approached you about doing it.
No, I mean, people send us things like, will you promote this product? But I'm already promoting my own product. You know, I'm not going to like shill some water bottle for $500. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know how into wrestling you are, but I was watching WrestleMania last night. And there was, for the first time ever, they have all these like advertisements in the ring, like Prime Energy and, you know, a wing like chicken wing company and all this stuff. And for the first time, they're pushing a lot of this. So WWE is growing even more because now they have all this advertisement for it. And they're partnering with these other brands. I mean, do you see, like, I think there could be some synergy there with partnering with the right brands to kind of get you even a more broad audience.
Yeah. The problem is the brands I would want to partner with will not because how controversial I am. Really? And then people say, well, you could partner with right-wing things. But to me, a lot of the right-wing products, they're not our vibe. You know, they don't mesh well with what we're doing. I'm trying to appeal to mainstream cultural conservatives. They don't really follow politics. They know things are weird. You know, it's not necessarily this like right wing like Fox News stuff. Yeah, yeah. You know, and so like the right partnership, it's like, who even is that? You know?
Now, do you get a lot of people who are like super right wing where you're like, you're too fucking weird for me. I gotta keep.
I'm pretty far right, so I would say no, but some of the conspiratorial stuff has gone probably too far.
Yeah.
But not in terms of like right wing policies.
Who are some of the brands that you'd like to work with where you're like, they might not want to be a part of this?
Oh, just, I mean, any mainstream brand. You know, I wear Lululemon every day. I'd love to give them a shout out, but they'd be like, we disown you. Take off our clothes, you know, or whatever. Yeah. I mean, it's fine. I don't care. But it's like, they're not going to partner with me, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of some brands off the top of my head that would be like, oh, okay. That wouldn't be
maybe some food places because, you know, I'm always eating. I love eating. In every video, I'm like eating, you know.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only person who thinks of this. I mean, are you eating all that shit?
I eat it all, but I also intermittent fast. So I will eat it. Like whatever I have, that pasta dish, I'm not going to let it go to waste. Yeah, yeah. But like I'll skip dinner a lot of nights or, you know, I try to break it up. Otherwise, I'd be 300 pounds.
Now, when you're filming those, and I'm sure you've hit the same place once or twice before. A lot of. Are they like, oh, he's back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If when I'm in my hometown, forget it. Everyone knows what I'm doing. You know, they're all watching, laughing.
Yeah. Know? It's impressive. Yeah. It's so crazy. So now what's the next step for this? Now, how many users are you at? Like,
the app has 60,000 users.
Holy shit. Okay. That's great. Yeah.
So,
and is there a charge for it or no?
No, but there is a premium membership like any app. If you want to do a little more, send twice as many likes, you know. Yeah. So I think the app just growing, and then we want to add a friends feature, the same like Bumble has, but like find conservative friends, you know?
So, I mean, you obviously know what your competitors are doing. Like, what does something like a Bumble or a Raya or Hinge or something have?
Oh, millions of users.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hinge has probably 5 or 10 million.
No shit.
Bumble, same. Yeah. Tinder has like 40 million, you know?
Yeah. I think
so those are huge. But, you know, we're kind of just focused on like our thing, you know? And like,
what number would you start to be like, okay, I feel really good about this? Like, what?
Like 500,000.
500,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, keep plugging those videos. Holy
10x on what we have now.
Yeah.
Never know.
Well, I know we know what side you're going for this year, but like, what? I mean, do you think there's any difference in who wins this year? Do you think that, because I've always been under the impression, and I think this comes from my family a little bit. All I want to do is, as somebody who's an American citizen who's proud to be here, I love America. And I've always been very patriotic, and I feel like you can't be nowadays. But for me, I'm like, I just want to pay less taxes.
Right.
Right? And leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit about everything. I just want to be able to work and stop taxing the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm doing my taxes, and every time my accountant calls me, I want to throw the fuck up.
I know, it's crazy.
It's
I mean,
insane.
Gavin, there's this conservative guy, you know, provocateur, Gavin McInnes, and he had a great line. He said, America's divided into 2 groups. People that want to be left alone.
Yeah.
And people that won't leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, like
it's just like, I don't give a fuck what's happening. Just leave me. I just want to be able to work and not pay crazy amounts of taxes.
Yeah. So that's, I guess, a little more of a libertarian point of view. I'm not entirely bought into like, I don't care what anyone does. Like, I don't want people doing heroin at the park.
Yeah.
that Nessie goes
I
to.
agree too. Yeah.
You know, like there has to be some order.
I think that,
but
I think the law and order thing is way out of fucking control.
Yeah.
Way out of control. Like, I never used to feel unsafe here in New York. And I think 99.9% of people just want to feel like they could live their lives.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
they
part of
deserve
being
to
left
in
alone.
America.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's part of being left alone. I don't want to sit on the subway and have some fucking crackhead screaming in my face.
Right.
And then somebody be like, oh, he's just a street entertainer. I'm like, no, he's not. He's a fucking maniac.
Yeah. And at any moment he can snap like they do.
And it's like, and everybody's like, well, it's inhumane to keep them in homes. I go, but it's also inhumane to have them sleep in the subways and shit.
Yeah.
And attack other people.
No, they definitely, whatever politician rounds up all the homeless is going to win elections in a landslide.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if you're left or right, in New York, LA, wherever.
Yeah.
No one wants that.
No.
You know, it's totally out of control. It's dangerous. It's like dirty. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's like the amount of people shitting on the street. Like, I've actually seen multiple people shitting on the street. And I go, when did this become a social norm?
Yeah. That's totally not okay.
No.
No.
That's what's fucking crazy, man. And people are like, no, it's okay. I'm like, why is that okay?
That's definitely not okay.
You got kids walking on the street. Like, this isn't okay. Like, I think that part of being left alone is I don't want to walk down the street and get fucking mugged. I don't want somebody shitting on my sidewalk, you know. I think it's crazy that they spend the city's money. You know, if I leave my car outside, parked in front of my building, for 4 minutes, I'll have 3 tickets on it.
Oh, yeah.
But there could be a guy camped outside my apartment for 4 days, nobody bothers him.
Yep.
Why are we spending money ticketing cars?
Yeah.
You know, because
you could get fined if you spit gum on the street, and we probably would.
Yeah.
But then some guy's taking a shit. It's like, what? You know,
I saw a guy today. I saw a delivery guy driving a truck. Cop pulls him over, right? And I was on a bike because I'm like watching this happen. And I'm like, why in the fuck are you worried about this? Like, clearly this guy's just trying to do his job. You're worried about this. Yeah. There's so much other shit going on that you could handle.
Yeah.
Use your fucking if somebody was like, hey, we're going to raise your taxes, but it's going to go to cleaning up the city, I'd be like, all right, fine. I'm in for that.
Yeah. It never goes to that.
No, it never goes. And I don't want to eat up too much more of your time, but it's like you had to see so much corrupt, like there has to be so much shit that comes across the president's desk or any politician's desk that's like, hey, if you do this for us, we'll do this for you. Like, there's so much corruption. Like, do we just clean the slate and start over again? Or
we'd be better off cleaning the slate. I don't know if that's possible, so you just have to chip away. The biggest problem, which is why your taxes don't go to clean up the street, is because whether it's in New York or the federal government, the bureaucracy is massive.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a machine that's moving on its own. And someone like Trump can kind of turn the machine a little, but this thing has a mind of its own. It's just taking all of our money. It's sending it to Ukraine or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not working for Americans.
Yeah.
And, we just have to chip away at it. And I actually am pretty optimistic over the long term that we can.
Well, me too, because it's like it can't go any fucking further.
It's crazy.
Down the drain. It's insane. Well, John, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hanging out with me for the hour.
It's great.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Check out The Right Stuff. Even if, let's say some left people, people on the left want to join The Right Stuff.
I get this question. Yeah, if you're looking to date a conservative, if you might be a little more left-leaning girl that wants a conservative man, check it out.
Yeah, and
if you're there to
you're a libertarian.
Libertarian is right wing. Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyone follow Date Right Stuff on social media.
Yep.
And download The Right Stuff.
Yeah. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah.